Kal Kadosh, Boker Tov. I wanted to share with you an incredible idea that I saw that has to do with the students of Rabbi Akiva. We know that right now we are mourning the death of the students of Rabbi Akiva, and that's the reason why we are actually doing Sefirat Haomer. What do you mean Sefirat Haomer? The counting of the Omer came from the Torah already. They were counting from Pesach until Shavuot. That 100%. But why is it a mourning period? Why are we mourning? No music, weddings, even for Shechianu's whole questions, not to do it. Maybe on Shabbat, other things okay, depends what. Why is there so many restrictions for what? So we know the famous Gemara in Yevamot. The famous Gemara in Masechet Yevamot says, 12,000 pairs of students Rabbi Akiva had from one city until another city. It's two different parts of Israel. And they all died because they didn't give kavod to each other. The world was desolate until Rabbi Akiva came to the students in the south and he taught them, who are these students? We know it's Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua. These 5 students came and they disseminated the entire Torah for the rest of the world. They were the ones that made everything else. And now the Gemara continues saying, by the way, these 24,000 students, it was 12,000 pairs, so the Chavrutot, so therefore it's 12,000 times 2, 24,000 students. They died from Pesach until Shavuot. Says Rav Chama bar Abba, and some people say it's going to be Rav Chia bar Avi. All of them, they died a terrible death. What is a terrible death? Says Rav Nachman, Askira. Askira, just that way you should understand, is like COVID. What is it? It's mamash that a person cannot breathe. It's that it's pulling away their neshama from their soul from their body, that they're strangling. That means it's not just death that they just turn off and they just go to sleep and they don't feel anything. It's mamash, it's a powerful death. Now, all the rabbis come and they say, what's going on? The Zechut of Rabbi Akiva, everyone, they all perish. You know what it is? 24,000 people dying? And we're not talking about dying from terrorist attacks, dying from war, from people trying to conquer your countries. What are we talking about? They didn't give kavod to each other. They just died. It's powerful stuff. So in order to understand, I saw this Dvar Torah. It's a little bit deep, but it's something incredible that we go step by step and we'll understand a little bit of what's going on. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says, in the name of Resh Lakish, my dikti, what does it mean in the Torah? Ze Sefer Toldot Adam. This is the book of genealogies, of lineage. So it teaches us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed Adam HaRishon, every single generation and their rabbis. Once Adam HaRishon saw Rabbi Akiva, he was happy with his Torah, and then he was very sad with his death. So he comes and he says, Veli ma yakru re'echael. Look at what it is. What does that mean, this pasuk even? Veli ma yakru re'echael. Look how precious or what is the word yakar really means. Right, precious, my friend, to Hashem. Why was he happy in the Torah of Rabbi Akiva? So in order to understand this, we have to look at the Midrash Rabbah. The Midrash Rabbah says, things that were not revealed to Moshe Rabbeinu were revealed to Rabbi Akiva and his friends. Because it says, V'chol yakar ra'ata eno. Anything which is precious, anything which is yakar. Remember, nowadays, when you want to say in Hebrew, what is yakar? It's very yakar. It's very costly. It's very expensive. But yakar is also something precious. Yakarahi mipirnim. You say that the Eshet Chayil, right? Your Eshet Chayil, your wife, the wife of valor, is very precious, more than jewels and diamonds and pearls, right? Yakar. Yakar also means kavod, honor, respect. So we're going to have to obviously understand what we're referring to. But it says, V'chol yakar ra'ata eno. His eyes saw everything which was yakar. Who's that referring to? Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva came and he reached the level of yakar, whatever that means. And because of that, the Adam Rishon comes and he says, the pasuk, Veli mayakru re'echa el. He says, look at this yakar that I have here. So now we also find Rabbi Akiva reached this level of yakar because of the Rav Chida. The Rav Chida says, do you know at the beginning, what sefer are we in? There's 5 books of Moses. Yeah, 5 sefarim, Chanisha Chumshe Torah. Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar Devarim. Vayikra, how does Vayikra start? We're in Vayikra. Usually it deals with korbanot, sacrifices. We finish with the sacrifices. Now we're going to many other different mitzvot. What exactly, how does it start, the Vayikra? So Vayikra starts with a small aleph. Meaning if you take the Chumash, right, a Sefer Torah, or even a Tikkun Korim, you will see a small little aleph in Vayikra. Rashi already speaks about why the aleph is small. Moshe Rabbeinu did it to be humble, as if it was written by Yikar, that it was only a one-off, just like it's written by Bil'am, and it wasn't written all the time. Okay, fine. But says the Rav Chida, Vayikra, aleph, a small aleph, it's brought down in one of the Kadmonim, that aleph was hinting to the Chamishim Sha'arei Binah. There are 50 levels of understanding. Moshe Rabbeinu reached 49 levels of understanding, and that's why the aleph was small. Why? But he says there's a sefer called of Rabbi Yaakov Tzemach that he brings out of the Zohar Kadosh. There's 50 levels of understanding, and in the 50th level, there's another 50 levels. So it's not just that there's 50 levels. There's 50 levels, and then in the 50th level, there's another 50 levels. Okay? So Moshe Rabbeinu, he reached the first level of the 50th level. Okay? That means he did the 49 complete, and the 50th level, he didn't know the 50th level, but the first of the 50, of the meaning of the last one, he had. And that's why it's a small aleph. Aleph is 1. So he only had 1 chelek of the 50. That's what it's hinting. Now he comes and he says, Rabbi Akiva, though, reached all 50. That means Rabbi Akiva reached a higher level of chokhmah than Moshe Rabbeinu. Not in nevuah, because we say in Adon Olam, V'lo kam navi od ke Moshe. There was no other prophet like Moshe. But in wisdom, there was. For example, Shlomo Melech, he was chacham mikol adam. He was the wisest person of all men. Meaning his wisdom was superior to Moshe Rabbeinu. But nobody was superior in the level of nevuah, prophecy, to Moshe Rabbeinu. But in wisdom, there was. So here he says, how do you know that? Because you say, how do you say small aleph? Aleph ze'ira. Ze'ira, zayin, ayin, yod, resh, aleph. He says it's an acronym. Ze, Rabbi Akiva, yasigoto. Aleph, right? Ze'ira, zira. That means Moshe Rabbeinu only reached the level aleph, the first level of the 50 of the 50th level. Rabbi Akiva is going to reach all 50 levels. He's going to do the entire Shara Chamishim. According to this, he comes and he says, now we understand why it says, Kol yakar ra'ata eno, that anything precious, the eyes of Rabbi Akiva saw it, Kol yakar. Kol yakar means everything of that level. Not only the 50th level, the beginning like Moshe Rabbeinu, the entire level. Everything, Kol yakar. Now the Megaleh HaKumukot says that the letters of Rabbi Akiva is the exact same numerical value. Rabbi, Resh Bet Yod, Akiva, Ayin Kuf Yud Bet Hey, is exact same numerical value as Aleph Ze'ira, which means that Rabbi Akiva was already hinted in this yakar, in this precious, right? In this precious thing. Okay, that is going to be the first. So now, after we just understood this, we still don't understand what is this yakar. Because we just understood that when it says vayikar, vayikra, you have yakar aleph, aleph zeira, right? Now this aleph zeira means that Moshe Rabbeinu only had this form of yakar, the aleph, which is the first level of the 50th levels of the Sha'arei Binah, right? Sha'arei of understanding, and Rabbi Akiva had all of them. But what exactly is going on? So the Rav Chida brings down a Midbar Kedemot that Rabbi Akiva alav Shalom had nitzotzot of neshamot elionot. He had very powerful neshama, and he was actually from the tipa of Yosef HaTzadik. And that's why his nickname was Akiva ben Yosef. Not only because his father was Yosef, but because of Yosef HaTzadik. Now, the Arizal HaKadosh actually explains in the Sefer HaGilgulim that every single one of the Asara Harugei Malchut, of the 10 martyrs that were killed by the Romans, and one of them was Rabbi Akiva, came from Yosef. Why? Rashi says that when Yosef came, he ran away from the wife of Potiphar. So he didn't do the Averah with the wife of Potiphar, but something incredible. The Gemara says in Masechet Sotav, Yafozu Zeroi Yadav. He clinged his fingers into the ground, right? And through his fingers came out semen, which is a miracle, something incredible. And therefore, there are 10 fingers. The semen came out of the 10 fingers, okay? And therefore, it says over there, those are the 10 neshamot that instead of having children, they did have to have children. They had to come to this world. Who were they? The 10 children of Yosef HaTzadik. They were like the 10 martyrs that they were killed by the Romans. Now, we know that it's also hand in hand, as we gave another shiur, that there were the 10 brothers that had to come back because they sold Yosef HaTzadik, and then they had to come back and they were killed also in those nishamot. But so it comes out that Rabbi Akiva, that was killed by the Romans, came from Yosef HaTzadik. And now it makes sense, right? But now it comes and it says as follows. We know that Rabbi Akiva, right, because of his Kiddusha, he changed these nitzotzot that came out of the fingers of Yosef HaTzadik, right? And then he made it to Yakar. He made it very precious. Okay, why? What was Yosef HaTzadik's power? His eye. His eye nara, his eye. What does it say? Yosef. What does it say? Ben Porat Yosef, Ben Porat Ale Ain. The eye which did not come and look at negative things. He didn't look at something that was not his, that was the wife of his master, Eshet Potiphar. No eye will be able to overpower the eye of Yosef HaTzadik. And that's why there's no Ain Hara in Yosef HaTzadik, because of that. If you remember, I also brought down in the Shara Gilgulim, from the Shara Gilgulim, if you remember, we brought down the Rabbi Yochanan. He said also, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he said, Anami Zarad Yosef Katina, I come from the children of Yosef, de lo shalta be'en abisha, that there's no Ain Hara sholet bo. And I went and I told you, what does that mean that he's coming from Yosef? It doesn't only mean that he comes from Yosef, it means that he was actually also a spirit from Yosef HaTzadik. And that's why he was so handsome. And they went, and he used to sit down, right, by the Sharet Tevilah. And when the women and everyone used to come out, they used to see him. He used to make sure that everyone would see him so that they would have beautiful children. So somebody asked him, well, you're not worried about Ain Hara? You're putting yourself in the mouth of the lions that you don't care that people are looking at you and saying how handsome you are? Ain Hara. He went and he said, I come from Yosef HaTzadik. I'm not worried about Ain Hara. So the question is, what's going on? So if you remember, I actually went and I told you also, Rabbi Yochanan had 10 children, and all those 10 children died. And he used to go around to be Menachem Avelim. He used to give to the mourners consolement by carrying the tooth, or like a little small bone, it was a very, very small bone, of his 10th child. And he used to tell people, listen, I'm very sorry, this and that, but look, he lost 10 children. And then he had an 11th child that was called Rav Matna, Ilashon Matana, because he had to fix up the 10 children, which is basically the 10 semen that came out of the fingers of Yosef HaTzadik. Those were the 10 children that were born and they died. And then the 11th one was a present from Hashem, Matana, and that's why he called him Rav Matzna, Rav Matana, okay, because of that. So that was also by Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. And here now we're talking about Rabbi Akiva also. So therefore, when we come and we say, Bechol Yakar Ra'ata Eno, the eye of Rabbi Akiva saw Yakar, saw this precious thing. So therefore, it was because of the power of Yosef HaTzadik. And now it makes sense, because Akiva ben Yosef, right, he was a Gilgul of Yosef, and that's why he was called that, okay, as we already mentioned before. Now we're going to go to the next part. Adam HaRishon, the Gemara there says something incredible. Adam HaRishon, in the 9th hour, he was commanded, don't eat from the tree of wisdom, from the Etz Hadat, Tovarat, don't eat from it. The 10th hour, he already went and he ate from it. So he only lasted an hour without sitting. Okay, fine. The 11th hour, he was judged. The 12th hour in the day, he was already sent out. As it says, Adam Bikar Bal Yalin. Bikar. Now, by the way, this perek, this pasuk, Adam Bikar Bal Yalin, is in perek Memtet of Tehillim 49, which is the chapter of Tehillim that we say in the house of mourners, in the house of Avelim. And there it says that in the 12th hour, he was sent out of Gan Eden, and he didn't sleep there again. What does that mean? Adam Yekar Bal Yalin. Says the Midrash Rabbah, Amar Rabbi Yosef, Adam Arishon Lolan Kevodo Imo. His kavod was not with him. My tame, what's the reason? Because of the pasuk in Tehillim. Adam Bikar Bal Yalin, when a person passes away, he realizes that he has nothing. Nimshal kabehemot nidmu. He's compared to like animals. And if you read that perek of Tehillim, and I advise you to do it, it's incredible, because right afterwards it says, Ki lo bemoto yikach hakol velo acharav et kevodo. A person, when a person passes away, he doesn't take anything with him. And he doesn't even take the kavod that he has in this world. Right? I mentioned to you already the famous story with Rav Moshe Reichman, that he went and he left in the will that he wanted to be buried with socks and this and that. And, you know, they were going back and forth. You remember, I'm sure you guys remember that story. It was an incredible story, right? You remember the story or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, Rav Moshe Reichman, when he passed away, he left 2 letters to his children. The first letter was right away when he passed away. So they opened it up. He thought that it was going to be like the will and everything. He said he wanted to be buried with the socks. So the children went, they started asking, and yes, no. 30 days later, they came and they say, okay, there's a second letter. So they come, they open up a letter. What was written? I already knew that the answer was no, that I couldn't be buried with my socks. So why did I write it? To show you that after 120, a person can't even take a pair of socks with him. Forget about his money. Forget about anything else. Nothing. Mamash, nothing. He goes empty to the next world. Right? Why? Because there's nothing else. So therefore, that's why it's so important. So here he comes and he says, why? Because of this pasuk. The Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer says, Adam Arishon Lolan Kvodo, but he was without kavod. But it says, Adam Bikar Bal Yalin. What does that mean without kavod? Why? Yakar Adam Bikar. Bikar is Yud Kufresh, Yakar. Kavod. So therefore they come and they said he didn't have this Yakar. What was the Yakar exactly? We know that Yakar already means Kavod, because it says in Megillat Esther that by the women, they were commanded during the time of Achashverosh, V'chol anashim yitenu Yakar lebalehem. All the women have to give respect, Kavod, to their husbands. You understand? Achashverosh even understood that. Said nowadays it could be that it went backwards, but Achashverosh, they thought that he was crazy. You have to write that down, obviously, right? A woman has to give kavod to the husband. Obviously, a woman has to give kavod to the husband, but that's what they actually wrote down. So they come and they say, "What is kevodo?" Rav Chaim, right? The Marzav comes and he explains the ora tov, the light. It was a light. What is this light? When Adam Arishon was created, there was a special light that gave him the power to see from one part of the world to the other part of the world. It wasn't because his eyesight was 100 out of 100 instead of 20/20. It was because that he had this ore, and this spiritual ore, the spiritual light, gave him the power to see through everything and to see the distance, everything from one part of the world to the other part of the world. Once HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw Dor Enosh, that they were bad, he took away the light and he gave it for the tzaddikim in the future. So it comes out that this is called Or HaGanuz, the Or that was placed in Genizah, the Or that was placed in hiding. It was taken away from Adam Arishon, and that's what's going to be given back at the end. So therefore, it comes out that Adam Bikar Bal Yalin means the Yakar, this light was taken away from him, and he put it in the Torah, meaning that in the Torah is this light. You could take out this light in the Torah, and that's why you see that you have Gdolei Odor, right? We're talking about people that they know incredible amounts. Why? because they see the light from the Torah. You have Gdolei Ador, we lost, one of the biggest now, Rav Chaim Kanievsky. He had a light, he had Ruach HaKodesh, and you just come and say, how does he know that? It doesn't make sense. How does he know such a thing? How certain things that you say, there's a light which is in the Torah in itself, and that light is what makes you be able to see things that you're not able to see. And that's what's brought down in the Gemara Pesachim Daf Nun Amud Aleph, where it says that it's going to be this day where it will be this or, right? Shikar ba'olam hazeh kafui l'olam haba, which means this is the Or HaGanuz, which is going to be, right, later on. So now that we just understood this, okay, now we're going to understand that Adam HaRishon was happy. Why was he happy? This light, which was taken away from him when he sinned, and that's why it's written, Adam Bikar, Yakar, was taken away from him. Rabbi Akiva was zocheret. And therefore it says that when Adam HaRishon saw Rabbi Akiva, he was so happy. Samach betorato. He was happy in the learning of the Torah. Why? Because he had that kavod back. He had the Yakar back. He had that light back into him. And that's why he went and he said, Velima yakru re'echa, look how yakar it is, my dear friend. Okay? Now with this, we also understand another Gemara. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah comes and he tells Akiva, he says, are you Akiva ben Yosef? He says, what are you learning Haggadot? You're learning Haggadah. There's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, Lamed Chet Amud Bet, and Chagiga Yudal Amud Aleph. He said, well, you're learning stories. Go learn in Negaim and Alot. Go learn things which are difficult to learn. Why? What is the connection? So the reason why is because the Gemara in Baba Kama says, Kavod Chachamim Minchalu. Kavod Chachamim Minchalu means that the Chachamim, they get Kavod. Who are that Kavod? Baalei Agadah. Do you realize who are the people that get the most Kavod? It's not the biggest Roshei Yeshivot. It's the people that are storytellers. The ones which are Magidim, the ones that they know how to give a good story. Those are the famous rabbis. Those are the ones that, he's an incredible speaker. He's an incredible. You could have that maybe he doesn't know not even a tenth, not even 100th of some other big Rosh Shiva. But the big Rosh Shiva, he doesn't know how to speak. He doesn't know how to give over a shiur. He doesn't speak in public. He gives over shiurim in the yeshiva to hundreds and thousands and everything, and he's backwards and forwards and this and that. But he doesn't know how to speak. So what happens? He doesn't get the same kavod. The kavod is given to those ones. So therefore, Rabbi Akiva, he was zacheh b'midat yakar. He was already a person of Baalei Agadah. How do we know that also? Because he went into the Pardes, the Shalom, and he came out. He went into the orchard of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he was able to come out also alive without any problem whatsoever. So therefore, you see from here, he already learned Agadah. He knew Agadot. So therefore, they went and they said, what are you coming and learning Agadot? You have to learn Negaim Ba'alot. Why? Because the Gemara there says, what is Or Yekarot V'Kipaon? Negaim Ba'alot. When they learn about Tumah V'Tara, purities and impurities, that brings light to the world. And that is the Yakar. That is the precious. So they went and they told Rabbi Akiva, what are you learning things which are so easy, right? Go, you already have that Yakar. Go learn Negaim Alot, learn the difficult things in order to teach everybody, the masses, about the different things. Okay, that's what he comes and he was given to say. So, okay, that's the number one. Okay, now we're going to continue. So now we come out that kavod means two different things. Or HaGanuz, the light, and kavod is kipshuto, respect. So now it says, now we understand when it says, en kavod ela Torah. There's no kavod, only Torah. Why? Rabbi Akiva was the root of all of Torah Shebe'al Peh. Moshe Rabbeinu was the root of Torah Shebichtav. Why? Moshe Rabbeinu is called, the Torah is called Torah Moshe. The Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu. But Torah Shebe'al Peh, everything comes from Rabbi Akiva. As we say, Stam Mishnah Rabbi Meir, Stam Tosefta Rabbi Nechemiah, Stam everything, and everything according to Rabbi Akiva. But Rabbi Akiva was the roots of everything of the oral Torah. So now we understand what happened, because it says in the Gemara Menachot of Kaftet Mubet that when Moshe Rabbeinu came up to Shamayim, right, he found that Kadosh Baruch Hu, that he's sewing crowns for the letters. What are the crowns for the letters? When you see in the Torah, there's the letters, there are crowns. Sometimes you have one crown, and sometimes you have three crowns, right? That looks like mamash like a crown, right, on top of the letters. So he says, Ribono Shel Olam, what is this exactly? So he said, no, there's somebody in the future called Akiva ben Yosef that he's going to start making drashot on all these things, right? And it says over there something incredible there. Rabbi Akiva, like, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't understand what Rabbi Akiva was even saying, and that's what we just mentioned right now. So he comes and he says, once Rabbi Akiva passed away, it says, Batel Kavod Torah. It was annulled the respect of the Torah. What does that mean? Because he used to make drashot, and even on the kavod, on everything, on every single thing. So now we understand why he was happy when he was born, when he saw the Torah. Adam and Ishon sees the Torah of Rabbi Akiva. He's happy. He got the yakar, he got the kavod. But when he died, he was upset at the death. Why? Because now it's batel the kavod of the Torah. So, right? That's what it says. So now he comes and he says as follows. Shimon HaAmsoni, the Gemara brings down, says he used to make a drasha on every single et on the Torah. So it says, "Ve'avta et Hashem Elokecha." You have to love Hashem your God. What is the et coming to include? Et is like the or and. What are you coming to include? So he was coming and writing down, and then all of a sudden he stopped. Why did he stop? It says, "Et Hashem Elokecha tira." You have to fear Hashem your God. Who does that include? You have to fear who? Who could come on the same level of God that it says, Et Hashem Elokecha tira? What does that mean? So he stopped until Rabbi Akiva says, no, et comes to include Talmidei Chachamim, the rabbis. Now the question is, what's going on exactly? What does that mean? But rather, according to what we just said, it makes sense. Since Rabbi Akiva had the midah yakar of kavod, he comes and he says, Talmidei Chachamim have the same kavod as kavod makom. They have the same kavod as the kavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So now we understand why the students of Rabbi Akiva, they passed away, shelo na'agu kavod ze bazeh, that they didn't give the kavod to each other. Since Rabbi Akiva's midah, whether it's the Ora Ganuz or the kavod of the Torah, everything that Rabbi Akiva stood for was yakar, was kavod, right? Not that he was asking for honor. That's not what we're talking about. Kavod here means the kavod of the Torah, the kavod of what it is that you're giving respect to the Torah. And that's why he was able to say that when you have to come and add in that you have to fear someone, you have to fear the rabbis, because that's kavod of Torah. Now you understand why they passed away. Why did they pass away? Because it means that they didn't receive the Torah from the rabbi. The Torah has to be a tradition. It has to go generation to generation. There's a chain. And that generation, that chain has to continue going. If they come and their main midah, the main attribute of their rabbi is kavod, is this yakar, how could they not give kavod to each other? He's coming and he's saying that you have to fear God, and that extra et comes to include you have to fear rabbis. So if it's like that, what's going on then? How could they not do that? How could they not fulfill that? It's a break in the chain. They had to die. And that's the explanation in the Omer. Omer in Sefirat Haomer, Omer, you could spell it Ain Mem Resh. If you spell it full, it's Ain Vav Mem Resh. But without full, Ain Mem Resh. Ain Mem Resh is the same numerical value as Yakar, the kavod that we spoke about from the beginning. Everything is the same order of ideas. More than that, the Zohar HaKadosh says, what is the numerical value of kavod? 32. Lev, to place your heart on someone. Okay, so kavod is lev. The Maharal Prague comes and he says, there's a pasuk in Mishle that we mention every single time by a Siyum Masechet. Orech yamin bimina ubismola osher v'chavod. When you have Torah, on the right side of the Torah, you have long life. On the left side of the Torah, you have osher, wealth, and kavod. When they didn't be noheg the kavod in the Torah, so then it took away their long life, which is on the other side.
Hey, Mauricio. Shalom.
Hey, David.
So now, according to this, we understand that when a person comes and they didn't give the kavod to each other, on the other side of the Torah, you have the long life. So they didn't get long life. So what happened? They died in 32 days. Lev, kavod, it's the same numerical value. They died for 32 days. And when it came in Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day, right, what happened? They lived. What is the 33rd day? What date does it always come out with? Because we know that on the 18th of Iyar, right? On the 18th of the Iyar, they stopped. What happened? We know that what happened. Iyar Yudchet. Yudchet is Chai. They lived on the 18th of Iyar. Chai is life. They lived on the 18th of Iyar. That's when it was the Lag BaOmer. They stopped dying. So therefore, it comes out that everything was into place. They died for 32 days because they didn't have the kavod or the lev to each other. And then they stopped dying on the Lamed Gimel, which is the 18th of Iyar, because it's Chai, they lived. And therefore what happens is they stop dying out. And now Rabbi Akiva has to come and start teaching an entire new generation. So now we actually come out, it actually comes out beautiful. Now we understand what's the kavod from the beginning. Because at the beginning we asked the question, why is it because they didn't act with kavod to each other? They died? Where's it written anywhere in the Torah that if you don't give kavod to each other, you die? But according to what we just explained, now it makes actually beautiful sense. The entire concept of the kavod was not just some kavod, I'm giving you kavod. The kavod was the kavod of the Torah. That was a tradition that they were able to understand the secrets of the Torah, the holiness of the Torah. It was everything. And this kavod was what Adam Rishon lost and Rabbi Akiva took. And Rabbi Akiva took this, and that's why Adam Rishon was so happy when he saw the Torah of Rabbi Akiva that he lost it and Rabbi Akiva gained it. But then he was so sad when he died, because when he died there was no more kavod of the Torah. And now we understand what happened also with the students. Since they broke the chain because they didn't have this kavod to each other, they all died, and they stopped dying after on Chai, on Yudchet Iyar, which is going to be Lag BaOmer, because that's when they're going to live, because they only died for the 32 days, which is the kavod. After that, that's it, it's finished. And therefore, that's why it's so important to be na'agu kavod zabazet, to give the kavod, the respect to each other, because we understand that was a missing key, and there was a missing link in the chain that he had to give to each other. The kavod of the Torah was to appreciate every single Jew has this Torah that I don't have. Every person has something that I don't have, and it's a Torah that's an entire world for us to understand and to grow in. Shabbat Shalom.